In the afternoons, Lucas used to be in the same place in the garden, next to the flowers, where the sun's rays were most delicate. The wheelchair was always positioned correctly, with a blanket covering the legs, even when it was not cold. At 6 years old, his eyes reflected the experience of someone familiar with a slow, meticulous and predictable environment. Rodrigo, his father, was extremely meticulous. Every toy, every physical therapy, every doctor's appointment, everything was organized. However, what Lucas longed for was not on any calendar. His desire was simply to enjoy, to run like the little ones he watched from the window of his home. Despite his inability to move, he longed for that possibility in his night dreams. Lately, even in my dreams, the girl appeared. His identity was a mystery to everyone. Without warning, he appeared through a gap in the garden fence, with his clothes dirty and his hair disheveled. He walked without shoes on the grass without saying many words. Lucas was observed as if the chair and crutches did not exist for the person looking at him. Observing him as if he were in front of her eyes, she asked him one day if he lived in that place, while he was drawing drawings in his notebook. Surprised, Lucas looked up. There were few children who approached. He simply nodded. She proposed playing as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I had no idea how to answer. I had never received a comment as spontaneous as that. He was an object of compassion for most people. He didn't pay attention to her in the slightest. However, he did not show fear in any situation. Not from him, not from the garden, not from getting dirty anymore. He returned that same afternoon. And also the next one. Emilia, as she introduced herself after several days, always arrived with a peculiar smile, somewhat shy and somewhat defiant. He told him little things. He enjoyed the company of felines. On one occasion he rested under the shade of a tree. His mother had disappeared without a trace. Lucas paid attention to her words as if she were revealing to him the deepest mysteries of the cosmos. He would collect small stones that he found on the ground and claim that they had magical powers. Sometimes he would place one in his hand and state, "This one will help you up." Then he burst out laughing. On one occasion, seriously, he mentioned, "I find it impossible to get around on foot." Emilia, without giving it importance, answered with a gesture of indifference. I expressed that it would not be an easy task. At that moment, in the headquarters located on the top level of the Lujan building, Rodrigo was putting his signature on papers without reviewing them carefully. The assistant was already familiar with his approval signals and his way of indicating to take care of something. He stood out as one of the nation's most prosperous tycoons, owning shopping complexes, skyscrapers and countless properties. However, since the death of his wife, his universe has shrunk. The only thing that was relevant was that Lucas's name. Rodrigo did not tolerate making mistakes. The priority was the child's health. For this reason, he decided to reside in a private residential complex, equipped with video surveillance systems, security guards, medical services and precisely organized schedules. Any change of direction made him anxious. Despite loving her son very much, she couldn't find a way to establish a deeper connection than that related to his health. He lacked the skills to play, make jokes, or show affection spontaneously. Their existence and that of Lucas were characterized by the absence of words, meticulousness and separation. Returning from a crucial video call, Rodrigo spotted something unusual through his office window. Lucas was laughing out loud, not just smiling, laughing genuinely, his head thrown back and his eyes shining. Next to him, a little girl with blonde hair was pushing him in the chair, running through the trees. Immediately, Rodrigo descended with annoyance. He questioned coldly as he approached, wanting to know the identity of the person. Emilia dropped her chair and took a step away, without saying a word. Despite Lucas's attempts to intervene, his father had already grabbed the person's arm and pushed them away determinedly. "You do not have the necessary authorization to remain in this place. It's time for you to go." Emilia gave him a look full of suppressed fury. Then, he turned his gaze to Lucas, who looked like he was about to shed tears. In the end, he said, "I just wanted to have fun," and ran off the same way he had come. Rodrigo did not wait to be given reasons. He took a deep breath and silently carried his son's chair inside. Lucas continued to constantly turn backwards without anyone noticing. Furthermore, he did not realize that, from that moment on, the little boy did not speak to him for several days. The days that followed had a different character. It's excessive. The house, which was already quiet, fell into an even deeper silence. Lucas did not respond to his father's questions, nor to the nurse's greetings, nor to the physiotherapist's activities. He barely shook his head in disapproval or remained absorbed staring into nothingness. Immediately, Rodrigo noticed. She observed how her son avoided making eye contact, how he no longer looked out the window, and how he stopped asking to go out into the garden. He believed it was temporary, a whim, something momentary. However, 3 days passed, then 5, and finally a week, and Lucas continued isolated in his own world. He did everything possible. He gave him a newly acquired electric train, one of the expensive ones that required assembly with more than 200 pieces. He asked the cook to prepare his favorite meals and also booked a mime to liven up the atmosphere. However, everything was in vain. One afternoon, while in the entertainment room, Rodrigo stood in front of his son. The physical therapist had already left, leaving them alone, facing each other, with a table full of toys in the center. Calmly, Lucas asked what was happening. "Be silent. I understand that you are angry, but without knowing the reason, it is difficult for me to provide assistance." Lucas directed his eyes downward. While he entertained his hands, he slowly tied the cord of his shirt. "Is the reason that small?" There was no response. "Did it cause you any problems?" "Over there." Lucas looked up. After several days, finally. However, there was no sadness on his face. He was furious. Content, but expressed in a simple way. He remained motionless for a few moments, observing him carefully. A chill ran through Rodrigo's body. "Where is Lucas?" The little boy made a gesture with his lips. Then he murmured, as if the sound were a burden. "What about her? Don't show compassion towards me." Rodrigo was perplexed, blinking. "Can you repeat what you mentioned?" "Emilia. He has no compassion for me. I do not receive adequate treatment for my health condition. It makes me laugh. Makes me forget the chair." As he concluded, Lucas's voice was filled with tremors. Rodrigo was left speechless. "I didn't expect it." He believed that the girl had caused him discomfort or created fear. However, no. It had given him a sense of normality and happiness. "Are you looking for Emilia?" The father repeated, barely grasping the idea. Lucas nodded as he wiped away a tear with his sleeve. "You were the one who fired her. You didn't even give me the chance to reveal my identity to you." You shouted contemptuously, as if he had no value. A stinging sensation took over Rodrigo's chest. He acted impulsively, as was his habit, in protecting Lucas. However, he also imposed his perspective of an orderly, protected and predictable universe. Emilia did not seem to belong there, however, perhaps, Lucas required her precisely for that reason. "My son," I wanted to express, but I couldn't continue. I had no idea how to fix it myself. I was just aware that I had messed it up. He never inquired about my lack of mobility. He offered his help if I decided to try it. And he achieved it in a way superior to all those doctors. Rodrigo lost the ability to speak. At the end of the day, once Lucas was in bed, he settled in his office, turned off the lamp, put his phone on silent mode, and relaxed by closing his eyes. For the first time in quite some time, there were no business matters on his mind, no protection concerns, no usual tasks. He imagined a little girl with golden hair, bright eyes, walking barefoot, pushing her son's chair with joy. He felt a real sense of guilt for the first time in a long time. The next day, Rodrigo did not show up at his workplace. He decided not to attend meetings, rescheduled calls and disconnected his cell phone. He drank a coffee and stood looking out the garden window, holding the cup and keeping his mind busy. The weight of silence in the residence was more overwhelming than ever. He was aware that he had failed. Not only for dismissing the girl without listening to her, but for not having previously understood her son's true needs. Emilia did not represent any danger. The situation was completely opposite. It was essential to find it. He went down to the reception of the building and requested the footage from recent days. Without worrying, the guard looked surprised. Nobody dared to contradict Rodrigo. Determinedly, he expressed his need to verify the people who have accessed the garden during the week. After a brief period of reviewing documents, the image was displayed on the monitor. Emilia passed through the narrow opening in the fence, carrying a battered backpack and no shoes. She was heading towards Lucas, who was waiting for her with a smile on his face. They participated in the game and moved quickly. Then she began to gently encourage him to get up from the chair. They both shared laughter. Watching the scene, Rodrigo pursed his lips. There was an existence in that place, one that he had failed to provide for his son. The next day, he quietly gave the order to move forward. The video showed the precise moment when Rodrigo descended into the patio. The camera recorded his determined step, frowning, approaching the children. Immediately, Emilia dropped the chair. He backed away in fear. Rodrigo indicated the way out. With an expression filled with anger, he watched him silently. He ran away. He inquired if more photographs of the person in question were available. The guard nodded and scheduled the filming for the next day. There it was. At the other end of the street, near the garbage containers of the food establishment, Emilia was searching through the sacks. He came across a half-open box. With caution, he opened the door and consumed what was inside with his hands. Nobody paid attention to him. He didn't receive help from anyone. He was alone. Rodrigo remained without moving. I had never experienced such a level of embarrassment. He asked the guard what time he usually arrives. Around 2 to 4 in the afternoon. Always alone. Rodrigo nodded silently before leaving. He got into the vehicle and drove through the streets near the building. He explored parks, corners and alleys in his search. He stopped at every place where there were kids having fun or people relaxing in the sun. However, he did not observe her. After almost 60 minutes, he parked in front of the restaurant that appeared in the video. He headed towards the containers. I wasn't there. He remained in that place, motionless, waiting for Emilia's appearance as if it were something magical. A sound coming from behind forced him to turn around. She was responsible. He was carrying a damaged plastic bag and a loose-fitting jacket. Watching him, he remained motionless. The moment he saw him, his eyes immediately identified him. She took a step back, ready to start running. Wait! Rodrigo exclaimed as he raised his hands. I don't want to say goodbye to you. My intention is simply to start a conversation. Emilia watched suspiciously. How can I help you? I want to know how you are. What do you think of the idea of stopping by my house? Lucas feels your absence. The little girl kept her lips together without changing position. He stated without looking up that he did not own a home. Rodrigo took a deep breath. Never before have I experienced such an intense combination of remorse, melancholy, and affection. You already have one, he replied. And he proceeded to offer her his hand. There was uncertainty in Emilia. He looked at Rodrigo's outstretched hand cautiously, as if it were something threatening, something that could vanish upon contact. His fingers were dirty and cold. The sleeve of his old jacket reached almost to the tips of his fingers. He made no comment. He stared into her eyes, trying to decipher if she was speaking sincerely. Rodrigo did not continue pressing. He remained motionless, with his hand raised, waiting. After a few moments, Amelia took a step forward, followed by another, until finally she grabbed his hand. During the car ride there was complete silence. Amelia sat in the back seat, watching through the window as if she preferred to go unnoticed by him. Rodrigo was driving at low speed, feeling a tightness in his chest. I had been meaning to express something, but I was undecided on how to begin. Apologizing wasn't something he usually did, especially to a girl. Upon arriving at the property, the guard was surprised to see her accompanying him. Rodrigo briefly mentioned that she was a guest and continued on his way. In his room, Lucas was sitting next to the window. Hearing the door open, he turned around with little motivation. Seeing Amelia, his eyes widened so much that he seemed in disbelief. With barely a whisper, he uttered, "Amelia?" He showed a smile. A simple smile, one of those that speaks for itself. Lucas got up from the chair and, with a lack of dexterity, approached her. They melted into an intense embrace, as if time had kept them apart for a long time. From the door, Rodrigo watched them carefully. For a moment, he felt like a stranger in his own home. Amelia whispered to Lucas, "I'm back. I didn't think you wanted to go back." "In honor of my father." She replied that she had not gone for him. "I've come to look for you." The phrase shocked Rodrigo, although he decided not to express his disagreement. He was right. The little girl had valid reasons for not placing her trust in him. Afterwards, Amelia took a warm bath for the first time in a long time. He received clean clothes from one of the charities supported by the building. Lucas didn't stop showing him his room, his toys, and his books. Amelia observed everything around her with curiosity, but avoided touching anything. The three settled down at the table to eat dinner. Rodrigo barely took a bite of his plate. He was simply looking at them. Lucas didn't stop talking, telling Amelia everything that happened while she was gone. He didn't like the newly arrived physiotherapist, the taste of the lentil soup was still unpleasant, and the house had become sad since his departure. "What about you?" the little boy asked. "Where have you been?" He walked around in search of food, resting where he could. "Sometimes, when the rains fell, I took refuge in the station." A lump formed in Rodrigo's throat. In the end, he expressed that this would not be repeated. Amelia watched, this time without fear. "What was the reason for dismissing me previously?" "Be silent." With his gaze fixed on his father, Lucas waited for the answer. Rodrigo confessed that he felt afraid. "I thought you were planning to take advantage of him, that you might hurt him. However, I made a mistake." Amelia gave no signs. However, distrust was no longer reflected in his eyes. Just a cautious calm, typical of someone who has experienced much more than his age. That night, while Lucas fell asleep, Amelia remained on the living room couch. Rodrigo brought a blanket and a glass of warm milk. He took a seat nearby, respecting her privacy. "I do not know the length of your desired stay, but this residence could be yours if you so decide." Amelia sneaked a glance at him. "I don't need housing. My only request is that Lucas not be without company." Rodrigo nodded his approval. Although it did not represent a large amount, for him it marked the beginning of something. The next morning, sunlight filtered gently through Lucas's bedroom window. While she was resting, Amelia was on the couch near her bed, wrapped in a blanket, her hair disheveled and her feet swinging. It was Lucas who woke up first. He remained watching her in complete silence, as if he needed to confirm that he was not dreaming. He asked quietly if she was awake. Amelia opened her eyes slightly and nodded with a tired smile. "Did you rest adequately during the night?" Jokingly, he commented that it was more comfortable than on the subway as he stretched out like a feline. A laugh from Lucas resounded after a long time in silence. From the half-open door, Rodrigo heard them talking. He decided not to get in the way. She went down to the kitchen, where she made toast and juice, and then transported them on a tray. Upon entering the room, the two were sitting together on the bed, enjoying reading a picture book. When he placed the tray on the table, he said, "Good morning." Lucas seemed surprised when he asked if you had been the one who cooked. "That way. I don't guarantee it tastes good." Emilia tasted the bread, chewed it and expressed her approval with an affirmative gesture. "How is it?" "Superior to what I find in the trash." A lump formed in Rodrigo's throat. After having had breakfast, the physiotherapy specialist showed up. On Tuesday it was time to exercise. Rodrigo got ready for the usual routine. Lucas complained constantly, showed resistance to participating, and tired quickly. However, on that occasion something changed. Emilia asked if she could stay to observe. The friendly physiotherapist indicated that additional actions were possible beyond simply observing. In case Lucas agrees. Lucas nodded happily. Throughout the meeting, Emilia remained close. He didn't get involved. He didn't make jokes. He remained there, offering simple words of encouragement. "You have the ability to achieve it, and even a little more. See how close you are to achieving it." Despite sweating, Lucas did not give up. Rodrigo watched with great nervousness as his son struggled in an unfamiliar way. Suddenly, he leaned on the bar and took a step forward. Only one. Small in size, but solid in its structure. Emilia clapped her hands. With pride in his gaze, Lucas watched her. A smile appeared on the physiotherapist's face. In his words, a single step is more valuable than doing 100 exercises without motivation. Slowly, Rodrigo approached. He bowed in front of his child. "I feel very proud of you." Lucas turned his gaze to him and, for the first time in a long time, issued a response. He expressed his gratitude towards his father. For a moment, Rodrigo decided to close his eyes. He felt a sensation of movement inside him. Something that was not related to business matters or finances. That was different. Something I had forgotten for a long time. That afternoon, Rodrigo took Emilia to a store to do some shopping. He did not mention the intention to purchase clothing, footwear or recent items. They entered and walked through the corridors in complete silence. Emilia watched everything with suspicion. He handled objects delicately, as if just looking at them could break them. Rodrigo handed over a bag. "Choose an option that is to your liking." "For what purpose?" "Addressed to you. For your belongings. If you decide to return to school." Emilia stared at him. "Do you mean I have permission to stay?" Rodrigo took a deep breath. "I am stating that this home looks more welcoming with your presence inside." Emilia gave no signs. He clutched the backpack tightly to his chest, treating it as if it were a priceless item. That night, he began drawing drawings next to Lucas. They used colored pencils to create figures of monsters, castles, and dragons. From the kitchen, Rodrigo watched the others with a cup of warm coffee in his hands. His son was no longer alone, he now had the company of a special girl. 2 children who needed each other. Finally, he managed to understand it. Saturday morning was characterized by the delicious aroma of freshly baked bread in the air. He descended the stairs with socks on, carrying the brand new backpack slung over his shoulder. Rodrigo had enrolled her in the nearest school, and next Monday she would begin her first day of classes. Although he didn't express it openly, it was evident in his eyes. "I felt anxious." On the contrary, Lucas did not stop talking. It detailed how breaks worked, the teacher's preferences, and which subjects were tedious. While spreading butter on a slice of toast, Emilia listened attentively. From the dining room, Rodrigo watched them carefully. Every day I noticed that they were closer, as if they had been growing together for a long time. Lucas no longer experienced the silence, the sadness, or the dull look. I was returning to childhood. After breakfast, Emilia went to the guest room, which she almost considered her own, with the purpose of organizing her belongings. Approaching the half-open door, Rodrigo watched as she extracted crumpled papers from the depths of the ancient backpack. He inquired, curious about the content you were holding. Emilia was slightly surprised, but then showed a smile. They are just personal matters. Illustrations, memoirs and certain letters. With caution, Rodrigo approached. He asked about the letters and she responded affirmatively, handing him an aged paper, folded in 4 parts. Carefully, Rodrigo unfolded the blade. The writing seemed like that of a child, with spelling mistakes, captured with a worn pencil. "Oh, dear gentleman in evening dress. I didn't mean to make him uncomfortable. My intention was to provide support to Lucas. He is a kind person. Although he doesn't laugh often, when he does, it's charming. Avoid telling them that you do not have permission to participate. I don't care if he walks or not. I only enjoy your company. Sorry for my intrusion. I find myself without a destination to which to go. I prefer that you not be alone, sorry. Emilia." A lump formed in Rodrigo's throat. He continued reviewing different notes. Some consisted of searches of places to rest without being discovered by the authorities. Some illustrations showed Lucas in a superhero outfit. The writing of this text occurred after my departure. I considered that maybe in the future you could pay attention, but I didn't come back until you contacted me. Not knowing what words to use, Rodrigo settled down on the bed. The little girl had experienced more in 6 years on the street than he had in many years of a comfortable life, but her voice showed no resentment, but a courageous serenity acquired by force. Gently, he proposed, "Would you like to keep these letters in a special place?" Emilia hesitated before shaking her head. He expressed his wish that you would be the one to keep them. To your surprise, he explained that they were now part of your personal history. With a heavy heart, Rodrigo grabbed them. That same afternoon, when Lucas was resting, Rodrigo went to his office. He took a wooden box from his desk that had been empty for years and decided to keep the letters inside. Then he wrote a short message and placed it on top. He expressed gratitude for having the power restored. At night, Emilia and Lucas shared reading before going to bed. As she flipped through the book, he rested his head on her shoulder. From the door, Rodrigo watched them. After a long time, he realized that love can surprise by arriving in unexpected ways. Sometimes he appears without shoes, with messy hair and a damaged backpack, but possessing the ability to cure what was believed to be irrecoverable. Sunday morning presented itself with a cloudy sky. The windows were hit by a soft rain and the sky seemed to reflect an ancient melancholy. While Rodrigo was in the living room, with a cup of coffee in his hand, he experienced a feeling of tightness in his chest that was inexplicable to him. Emilia and Lucas were on the ground building a castle together with blocks. While they had fun together, exchanging laughter and affectionate gestures, he experienced constant restlessness, perhaps because deep down he understood that life is fleeting. After the meal, he approached Emilia privately. He expressed tenderly, "I need to talk to you briefly." The little girl followed him to the kitchen room. Rodrigo leaned down to match his height. He said, "I've been thinking about how we could get you to stay here legally." Emilia frowned with concern. "Is it impossible for me to stay?" "Of course not, however, I require that a judge approve the situation, in order to protect you and prevent someone from taking you. I would like you to be part of our home." He cast his eyes downward. He crossed his arms as if the cold had suddenly arrived. In a low tone he said, "This is not going to end well." "What is the reason?" "It always ends badly. They always make me go out. From all directions. I get instructions to stay, but then I get fired or ignored." A stinging sensation invaded Rodrigo's chest. "I don't look like them, Emilia, and I will never forget you. If they decide to take me and claim that you are not capable of possessing me, Emilia, we will face it together. You can trust that I will be by your side, I will not abandon you." He got no response from her. He accepted with a slow gesture. That night, Lucas was unable to fall asleep. In bed, he writhed nervously. Emilia, lying on her mattress on the floor, asked him what was happening. "I'm worried you won't be here tomorrow." "Why do I say it?" "My dad mentioned that he will bring some documents for you to stay, and when the elders handle papers, everything can change." Amelia sat on her cushion with her legs intertwined. "I'm not going to leave. Despite the fear I feel, I will stay by your side." "Oh really?" Lucas responded with an affirmative gesture. Amelia woke up, lay down next to him and stroked his hair until he fell asleep. From the half-open door, Rodrigo watched them. With cloudy eyes, he leaned against the edge of the door. At that moment, he understood that the girl was his daughter, even though the authorities had not yet confirmed it. It was difficult for him to find the right words to express it. The next morning, Rodrigo went to court carrying the documentation. He held conversations with a social worker, a lawyer, and a magistrate. He narrated the situation in detail, exhibited evidence, projected recordings, stories, correspondence. Meanwhile, Amelia and Lucas were waiting at home, not knowing what would happen. When Rodrigo returned, his facial expression denoted seriousness. From the sofa, Amelia watched him nervously. He took Lucas's hand. Rodrigo bowed in front of them. Despite the difficulties, they managed to start the foster adoption process. Lucas wanted to know the meaning of this. It was explained to him that Amelia could officially stay with them. However, it is necessary to show that this option is the most beneficial for your well-being. Here you can feel protected. Here you find happiness. Amelia remained silent. He threw himself directly into Rodrigo's arms. For the initial time. For the first time, he wrapped his arms around her as if she were his own daughter. On Monday he showed up ahead of schedule. At dawn, Rodrigo got up and took care of the first meal of the day. He wanted everything to turn out successfully, despite feeling how his nerves were affecting him deeply. Amelia came out wearing her brand new school uniform, which was a bit baggy, and she had her hair tied up in a messy ponytail. With pride in his eyes, Lucas watched her. "You seem like a person of great importance," he commented. Amelia showed a shy smile. Rodrigo offered bread spread with butter and orange juice. While Lucas happily enjoyed his food, Amelia barely touched what was on her plate. Rodrigo, worried, asked him if he was okay. He nodded, avoiding her direct gaze. "Are you feeling anxious?" He confessed yes, although to a lesser extent. "My school attendance was limited in the past. I always found myself in the need to move, to vary my location. I didn't have any more." Rodrigo settled down next to him with determination. "This time, you won't leave. You will have your desk, your notebook, your colleagues, and at the end of the day, we will be present for you." He swallowed saliva. Despite having doubts, he was willing to fully trust. The car ride passed in complete silence. Rodrigo left them at the school door. After saying goodbye to his classmates from the inclusion program, Lucas left with his assistant. Amelia remained at the entrance, adjusting the straps of her brand new backpack. She asked Rodrigo if he had permission to access, to which he nodded affirmatively. "Today you begin a new stage in your life." With a nod, he crossed the fence. Rodrigo remained inside the vehicle for a brief period, dedicated to observation. Amelia advanced hesitantly, without a defined direction. That's when a little girl approached. After asking him a question, they held hands and entered the place together. A sigh of relief escaped him. At home, time passed slowly. Rodrigo found it difficult to focus on his work tasks. Every 5 minutes, he checked his watch. At 2 in the afternoon, I was in front of the entrance to the educational institution. Leaving quickly, Amelia had her face dirty with dust and held a crumpled sheet of paper in her hand. He sat in the car and was silent. Rodrigo asked him how it had gone, to which he initially responded in a deadpan manner saying good. He later commented that he had been assigned to the slow reading team. "However, I liked the teacher. He asked me if I enjoyed making drawings. I accepted the proposal. I was allowed to use the tones. I received a pencil that smells like watermelon as a gift from a girl. A smile appeared on Rodrigo's face. Emilia took the paper out of her backpack and displayed it. Under the shade of a tree, there was a drawing that represented her, Lucas and him. Furthermore, in large chaotic letters, you could read the phrase, "My new home." He experienced a relaxing feeling in his chest. Emilia asked if it would be possible to place it on the refrigerator, to which he responded by suggesting she frame it if she preferred. He looked through the rearview mirror and smiled. That smile barely hinted at teeth, but it communicated beyond what any words could express. That night, Lucas was attentive to the story that Emilia was telling him. Rodrigo was no longer the storyteller. Yes, it was her. His tone soft, a little harsh, but always determined. At the end, Lucas asked if the school had been to your liking. You responded affirmatively, highlighting that the most rewarding thing is returning to this place. From the entrance, Rodrigo watched them. He did not witness the presence of a helpless girl or the illness of a son. I watched two children reconstructing something that had been taken from them in the world. The childhood stage. And that was invaluable. Tuesday's day began peacefully. Lucas attended 2 physical therapy sessions in a row, while Emilia showed a poem at school that she had written with the collaboration of a friend. In the morning, Rodrigo went to his workplace. Despite having his mind at home most of the time, he did not want to neglect his work responsibilities. Around noon, a call completely surprised him. Attorney Morelos from the juvenile court is online. Is it Rodrigo Lujan? It is essential that you attend tomorrow morning to carry out a further evaluation on Emilia's case. Did something happen? He asked immediately. We received a notice from a distant relative, a person who claims to be related by blood to the minor. A chill ran down Rodrigo's spine. What nature is the connection? My aunt on my mother's side. He resides in the urban outskirts, however, he has submitted the necessary documentation and wishes to be part of the procedure. The judge has to determine if it is feasible. Rodrigo closed his hand tightly. He was beginning to calm down, realizing that the most difficult part was behind him. However, that is not the case. Existence continued to present challenges. Tomorrow I will find myself in that place. I appreciate the notification. With his heart in his mouth, he hung up. At home that afternoon, he tried to behave as usual. She interacted with Lucas, collaborated with Emilia on her homework, they shared dinner, although she couldn't completely pretend. Emilia realized. As they were clearing away the dishes, he asked, "Are you feeling strange today?" He replied, "I'm just a little fatigued." Although she did not press, she remained thoughtful. Later, once Lucas fell asleep, Rodrigo sat next to her on the couch. He said, "I have something important to tell you," while looking down at the ground. What happened? We have to return to the courthouse tomorrow. It is said that a relative of yours has emerged who may be interested in looking after you. Suddenly, Emilia's facial expression completely transformed. She became tense. Aunt? That's how it is. It is said that she is your mother's sister. The person's mother did not have sisters. He never mentioned it to anyone, at least not in my presence. You may not have had the pleasure of meeting her. Maybe they lived in different places. What is that lady's wish? I don't have that information yet. However, it is necessary that we appear and have a conversation with the magistrate. She will make the best decision for you. Emilia chose not to say anything. Then, calmly, he expressed. I don't want to leave, Rodrigo replied, looking at her. Although I would prefer if you stayed, we need to face this as a team, okay? With an affirmative gesture, his eyes reflected fear. What if they pressure me? We will do everything in our power to prevent that from happening. No matter what happens. You are not alone. That night, Rodrigo found it impossible to fall asleep. He walked through the house in complete silence, reliving every moment shared with Amelia. The arrival, the expressions, the doodles, the laughter shared with Lucas. He reflected on everything they had built and how inequitable it would be to lose it at this moment. In the hallway, she saw that the door to Lucas's room was slightly open. He took a look. While she was resting, Amelia was curled up next to the bed, lovingly clutching her brand new bag. While he rested, Lucas kept one of the letters she had written to him, folded, under his pillow. Rodrigo looked at them for an extended period of time. Then he gently closed the door and murmured into the wind. "Tomorrow we will defend your cause, Amelia. At any price." At dawn, the sky was covered with gray clouds and in absolute silence, as if the day was aware of what was about to happen. At dawn, Rodrigo was already awake. In complete silence, he prepared breakfast and set the table with everything ready. It was inevitable that his hands would experience a slight tremor. Amelia descended with the backpack on her shoulder, showing greater silence than usual. He was wearing a school uniform, but he would not be attending classes that morning. Watching her, Lucas inquired with concern about her destination. She, in a discreet tone, answered that she had to accompany her father to court. Lucas then asked if he would return. Amelia leaned towards him and hugged him tightly. "Of course, silly," he replied with a forced smile. "We're just going to talk to some boring adults." Lucas tightened his hug. From the door, Rodrigo watched them carefully. He was aware that he could not commit to his son in matters beyond his control, but he was determined to do his best. A cold atmosphere reigned in the court, with white walls and plastic seats arranged in a row, similar to the waiting room of a medical center. Amelia held Rodrigo's hand. With a restless gesture, his eyes moved from one place to another. After a few moments, a lady emerged. Her dark hair was tied up and she was wearing a simple blouse. His eyes showed fatigue, although they radiated warmth. With a soft voice, he asked, "Are you Amelia?" The little girl hid slightly behind Rodrigo. She introduced herself as Miriam, Rodrigo's mother's sister. Rodrigo noticed that Amelia stiffened. He didn't utter a word. "My intention is not to harm you. I would like to know what your status is at the moment." A social work professional called everyone to go to the magistrate's office. In a tiny office there were shelves full of books and in the corner the national flag was flying. The judge greeted him with a "Good morning. Our presence is necessary to analyze the custody condition of the girl Amelia Diaz. Mr. Lujan and Mrs. Miriam. I appreciate your presence." The magistrate began by asking simple questions. Miriam commented that she lived in Veracruz and that she had just learned of Amelia's presence through a distant cousin, which motivated her to undertake the search for the latter. She commented that she worked as a domestic worker and had 2 grown children. "Although I don't have many resources, I have a suitable space for it." He honestly expressed his wish that it not be on public roads. Hearing those words, Rodrigo experienced a combination of reverence and fear. That lady did not give the impression of being evil. That situation made everything more difficult. When his time came, Rodrigo detailed the circumstance. The way Lucas met Amelia, the changes he experienced in his life since she arrived and how the girl became a fundamental member of his family. It featured videos, illustrations and correspondence. He expressed his thoughts simply and sincerely, showing his true feelings. The magistrate listened attentively without saying a word. Then, he turned his gaze towards Amelia. "What do you say to me, love? What is your wish?" The little girl sat in the chair. He had a soft but determined tone of voice. "My wish is to be with Rodrigo and Lucas. I don't know if that woman is my relative, I have no relationship with her, although I do have a relationship with them. I feel protected in this place. I have an education, a place to rest, the company of a friend and the support of my family." There was a long moment of silence. After taking a deep breath, the magistrate turned her gaze toward those present and said, "I will need a few days to reflect, but I value your sincerity." I assure you that I will choose thinking about the benefit of the little girl. Rodrigo agreed with a nod. Miriam likes it too. As she left the courtroom, Emilia grabbed Rodrigo's hand again. This time, stronger than ever. After the meeting with the judge, the days that followed were long, full of tension and marked by uncomfortable moments of silence. At home, everything looked identical on the outside. While Emilia was heading to school, Lucas was in a physical therapy session and Rodrigo was traveling to and from work. However, deep inside, none of the three could help but sense that something was about to break. Every time the landline rang or a notification arrived on Rodrigo's cell phone, Emilia felt great tension. He bowed his head and left discreetly, as if at any moment he could be told to gather his belongings and leave. Rodrigo made an effort to maintain his serenity. He was aware of the importance of standing firm for both of them, although it was a difficult task. Never before had I experienced such deep fear of losing someone. The issue was not limited only to adoption. That connection that arose between them was something special, a family that they were creating without having anticipated it. That Wednesday afternoon, Emilia returned home from school noticeably quieter than usual. He retired to his room immediately and did not leave it until dinner time. Rodrigo approached her and asked her if everything was in order. She nodded without looking at him. Did something happen at school? Not at all. Rodrigo stood next to him, on the carpet, and asked him if it was because of the judge. Emilia nodded while pursing her lips. A little girl mentioned that if I don't have a mother or father, they will take me to a home. Who was the person who told you about it? A member of the reading club. I don't give it much importance. He shrugged his shoulders, although I did experience fear. Rodrigo placed his hand on Emilia's shoulder and assured her that she was not alone. Never again. That girl's claims are not true. In any case, while we wait for the resolution, this place is your home. Lucas requires your presence. So do I. What happens if they choose not to? What is our next step? Then let's find an alternative. However, I will not allow you to leave. Finally, Emilia looked at him. A combination of optimism and suffering was reflected in his eyes. Although he feels the will to believe, he still cannot fully do so. Would it be possible to rest in Lucas's room tonight? Of course. It is a fact that he will be happy. That night, the children rested together, just as they did at the beginning. From the door, Rodrigo watched them carefully. Lucas clings to a stuffed animal while Emilia rests with a book on her chest. They did not communicate verbally. They didn't need to do it. They were just together. Rodrigo went down to his office and unpacked the container where he had deposited Emilia's letters. He reviewed each of them again. They were not simply documents with unskillful texts. These were fragments of a little girl who managed to overcome the adversities of life on the street, helplessness and fear. A little girl who, surprisingly, found a home in an unexpected place. He took a deep breath before personally writing a letter. I was hesitant to hand it over, but it was essential to do so. He took her before the magistrate. Although he does not share my blood, he carries home with him in every step he takes. And my son, who had lost the ability to laugh, regained his innocence thanks to her. Please leave it as it is. Please don't deprive us of that. After finishing the writing, he placed the envelope inside his jacket. The next day would involve waiting again. However, deep down, he was fully aware of reality. Emilia was his descendant, although society had not yet discovered it. Thursday morning presented itself with unusual luminosity. The first flashes of sunlight filtered through the windows as if trying to communicate something. Rodrigo took more effort than usual when preparing breakfast. Lucas will enjoy scrambled eggs, Emilia will have toast, and all three will drink natural juice. He tried to continue with the daily routine, although inside he felt that time was passing differently. Feelings of anguish. Going down, Lucas dragged his chair with a sleepy smile. Rodrigo, while serving the juice, confirmed that there were also classes that day. Don't worry, the weekend is near. What about Emilia? He is still getting ready. A few minutes later, she came out downstairs. She wore her uniform impeccably, with her hair tied back and a worried expression on her face. Despite not mentioning it, Rodrigo was aware that she longed for the same thing as him. A reply. Emilia, with a piece of bread between her teeth, asked if they were not receiving a call that day. Rodrigo, calm, answered that in that case they would wait until the next day. He stressed the importance of being united at that moment. He didn't answer. He simply nodded, as if trying to contain his excitement. At 10:30 in the morning, Rodrigo's mobile phone shook on the table in his office. He observed the numeral, Children's Court. He noticed how his heart began to beat faster. Tell me. Good morning, Mr. Lujan. Ms. Morelos is available to speak. The magistrate has made a resolution. Would it be possible for you to come this afternoon to hold a formal meeting and listen to it? If you prefer, I can inform you of the solution by phone. There was a moment of silence on Rodrigo's part. His hands were shaking. Of course, I would love to. The professional took a breath at the other end. After evaluating the girl's current context, the school documents, the minor's statements and her official adoption request, the judge has determined to grant you temporary guardianship with a view to permanent adoption. Rodrigo, with his eyes closed, understood that Emilia would choose to stay with him and his son. Although there are still legal procedures to be completed, there is no longer any official objection. Miriam has waived any type of claim. He expressed understanding that the girl already had a family unit. Rodrigo was speechless at the question. Before ending the call, he only managed to whisper a brief, "Thank you." He remained silent for a few moments. He allowed the news to sink in. Then he picked up the cell phone again. He contacted the home by phone and requested that the children be picked up from school a little earlier. At the hour in the afternoon that marked 3 o'clock on the clock, Emilia and Lucas burst quickly through the entrance. Rodrigo was waiting in the room, upright, holding a folder of papers. Lucas, full of curiosity, asked, "Did something happen?" Emilia, visibly distressed, joined in, "Was there a call?" Rodrigo leaned down, took her hands and said, "The judge has determined that you remain with us, Emilia. This residence is yours. You and I are part of the same family." With a cry of happiness, Lucas wrapped his arms around his friend, as if he didn't want to be separated from her for a long time. Emilia remained motionless, staring at him. "Really?" "Yes, really, dear," and it was the first time he treated her that way. With his voice full of emotion, his eyes bright and the conviction of having found what he never knew he longed for, he told his daughter. Emilia ran towards him and hugged him tightly, with an intensity that she had not shown since her arrival at that residence, finally letting her tears escape. It was not out of fear or need for food, but because finally he no longer had the obligation to leave. Never of the nevers. The days that followed had a different feel. With greater lightness and warmth. The home stopped being simply a comfortable space. At that moment, his breathing was warm and comforting, like the warmth of a home. Emilia walked through the corridors with a different attitude, as if they were finally hers. He didn't inspect every corner carefully, nor did he protect his belongings as if he suddenly needed to escape. For the first time, she neglected the pencils on the floor, the unclosed backpacks, the drawings hanging on the refrigerator, like a girl who is sure that no one will scold her. Rodrigo showed a different attitude. He seemed calmer, spoke more sweetly and laughed more frequently. During the nights, she used to read silently while the children rested in different rooms, according to Emilia's choice, but always keeping the doors open between them. One weekend, walking through the park, Lucas was struggling to move his wheelchair, while Emilia walked beside him, sharing ideas for a story she had in mind to write. Rodrigo walked behind them, looking at them with satisfaction. Emilia suggested changing the character's name to Lulu. Lucas proposed that the character be a dragon unable to fly. Clear. Also, discover an enchanted wheelchair, he added excitedly. With a broad smile, Rodrigo approached and expressed his desire to frame the story once it was finished. "Do you think we can write it seriously?" Emilia asked. "Of course. We have the possibility of carrying out numerous activities in company." With a side glance, Lucas asked his father if they were a real family now. In front of them, Rodrigo leaned over and asked their opinion. Emilia expressed that, despite their physical differences, they share emotional similarities. Lucas nodded with conviction, as if he had just heard the most significant revelation. Rodrigo stated, "That's right, we definitely are." That night, at home, Emilia entered Rodrigo's study just as he was reviewing some documents. "Could I ask you a question?" "Yes, of course." "What was the reason for your search that day?" When he looked at Rodrigo, his face reflected seriousness but also tenderness, as he understood that he had expelled from his home the only person who managed to make his son smile. He realized that, regardless of the circumstances, the one who gives love to those we love most deserves a space in our path. Emilia looked down, full of emotion. He replied that he had imagined she would be alone growing up, and that he had anticipated growing old without company, but in the end, they were both wrong. A smile appeared on his face, and at that moment tranquility invaded the atmosphere. The next day, Rodrigo placed the drawing that Emilia had created a few weeks before in a frame, where he, Lucas and her are seen holding hands under a huge tree. At the top, the slanted but legible letters displayed the phrase, "My newly formed family." It was placed in the center of the room as if it were an artistic piece. That's how it was. Although their surnames did not match and they were not related, they possessed a more powerful bond, a narrative that had selected them, a story in which no one left alone and scathed and in which the concept of home was transformed into three hearts that learned to beat in harmony. The months passed, the seasons transformed and, with them, the patterns of life at home changed. However, what remained unchanged was the way in which they observed each other, with security, with affection, with the conviction that they were no longer alone. Rodrigo, who used to calculate time in terms of contracts and numbers, now marked it in Lucas's steps, in Emilia's academic reports, in the evenings where the topic of conversation was not work, but laughter shared over trivialities. He had found a form of wealth that was not deposited in financial institutions, but in the hugs they gave him when he woke up every day. Lucas moved forward gradually, no longer discouraged if something didn't go as expected. Emilia remained by his side at all times, supporting him with a peculiar combination of affection and determination. They created games, stories, and universes together. The chair ceased to be the main focus of his existence, becoming just a complement to his journeys. Meanwhile, Emilia was in full splendor. He was no longer hiding behind his lack of confidence. He attended classes, made friends, and wrote stories. From time to time he mentioned his previous story, but it no longer felt like a wound, but rather like a story that had helped him grow stronger. While the three were enjoying a snack on the balcony, Rodrigo was surprised to receive an officially sealed envelope. With trembling hands, he proceeded to open it and read in complete silence. When he finished, he looked up and observed them. Emilia inquired, "What happened?" A smile appeared on Rodrigo's face. "This is the final decision. The adoption has been finalized. There are no more stages, no additional rubrics, no more scheduled meetings. You have officially become my daughter." Emilia took a while to answer. He gazed at the horizon, watching the sun slowly descend behind the buildings. "Did you consider me your daughter before?" she asked. "Yes," he confirmed. "For me, you were from the moment I found you near the container." "Then this is simply a title," she murmured. "We already had the essentials." Rodrigo nodded his approval. Lucas surrounded them both with a hug, demonstrating that clumsy but genuine intensity characteristic of childlike innocence. "Our family is something peculiar, right?" he commented. "It's a special type of peculiarity," Emilia answered, "the kind that crosses paths by chance and never separates." Some time later, during a school event, Emilia shared a story called The Little Girl Who Taught How to Fly Without Having Wings. The story was told of a little boy who was unable to walk and a girl without a residence, who upon coming together realized that they did not require limbs to run or housing to experience the sense of belonging. You simply required someone to trust you in your most critical moments. Although he received a special mention from the jury, that was not the most important thing. Upon descending from the stage, Rodrigo surrounded the young woman with his eyes full of emotion, while Lucas exclaimed from the front row, "That's my sister." He laughed with a pure laugh that he had kept for a long time and answered, "And you, the brother who rescued me without realizing it." In the end, Emilia did not worry about finding a home, but rather about finding a place where she would be accepted unconditionally, while Rodrigo discovered in her what he was missing in his existence, without suspecting it. In the midst of the urban bustle, prejudices, failures and fear, three individuals selected each other, which was enough to begin a new stage. I no longer eat in the same way as before, but in an improved way. If this story touched your heart in the same way as those who experienced it, we encourage you to share your opinion below, expressing what aspect moved you deeply. Remember to give it a like if any part of this story moved you or made you happy, and share it with someone who needs to believe in the possibility of new beginnings. Thanks to your support, we can continue sharing stories that deserve to be known. Where in the world are you viewing this video from? We would very much like to receive your comments. If you enjoy true stories full of emotion, improvement and compassion, I invite you to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a single one. In this place, each story keeps a spirit, perhaps the next one will be yours.